You're listening to the Back Porch Talk podcast. Danny and Jason had many discussions and debates on the back porch while making pivotal investment moves with assets. That's right, with trading cards. They welcome you to the back porch and right into those discussions about current sports news with a fresh and unique twist. So come on and join us. Welcome to the Back Porch Talk podcast. I'm your co-host Jason.
This is your co-host Danny.
And we got a full show for you today. The NBA, boy, it is fantastic. Boston Celtics, Danny, came back from down 0-3. Ties it at 3-3 to force Game 7. They have Game 7 in their building. And what happens? They get demolished at home. 103-84, Miami Heat prevails to advance to the NBA Finals, which begins on Thursday, June 1st. Danny, I did not see this coming. I actually picked, after Game 6, I actually picked Boston to win in a rout. I thought this was going to be a blowout the opposite way. I did not think that the Miami Heat would come back from a devastating win at the last second, literally the last second, in the hands of the Boston Celtics. But nonetheless, man, the Miami Heat proves me wrong yet again. They go ahead and go into Boston, and all I kept saying in Game 7, Danny, was, Caleb Martin, go ahead and get your money, young man. Get your money, young man. Caleb Martin, 26 points, 10 rebounds. I mean, I'm talking about he was just balling all over the court. Now, some probably would say that it was because Boston was focusing in on Jimmy Butler that allowed Caleb Martin to roam free, get open shots. No, I have to say it was more along the lines of Caleb Martin working throughout the series, Danny. In Game 7, I saw Caleb Martin dribble to his spot or take wide open shots or take contested shots or fake a shot and drive it into the cup. He reminded me of, I can't remember this young man's name, but Trevor Ariza. That's who he kind of reminds me of a little bit. Lanky, wiry, can drive to the cup or can shoot, be a good sidekick, if you will. But nonetheless, I think he made himself a lot of money this series. And there's a lot of questions as a result of this series, Danny. I mean, I'm just going to rattle some off. Where does Boston go from here? Do they sign Jaylen Brown to this max deal that he's now eligible for, and then ultimately trade him later down the road, right before the new CBA kicks in? What does this do to Jason Tatum's legacy? What does this do to the Boston Celtics? Do you break it up? Is Jimmy Butler a Hall of Famer? So many questions to ask as a result of this particular series. But Danny, what say you first about this Boston Celtics Miami Heat series?
Jason, we rewind back to Saturday night where Miami and Boston were battling back and forth, and Boston ended up stealing that game right at the end. And to your point, when something like that happens, usually in sports, the momentum carries over to the next game, especially in a Game 7. Boston had all the momentum. But if you watch those 3 games they did win, they were still inconsistent during those games. And what happened last night did not necessarily surprise me, because this is how they've been playing all playoffs, where they show those flashes of greatness and then they just look mediocre to bad, like last night. And I just don't get it, man. I don't know what they can necessarily do, because they have a lot of their players signed. Jaylen Brown is the one right now they would look to extend, but most of their starters and top bench players have multi-year deals right now. So they would have to swing some major deals to shake this up if that's what their plan is. Or Joe Mazzulla would be let go, but I'm not sure if they're going to do that either. They were just so inconsistent in the playoffs, man. And congratulations to the Miami Heat for knocking them off. Caleb Martin, Jason, if you remember, he was a key part of that eliminating the Bucks because he hit those big threes in some of those games where he wasn't necessarily known for his three-point shooting, but it's all of a sudden come alive and he's making plays. What I'm curious about is now they're going to play Denver. What do they do with Tyler Hero? Because Tyler Hero is a key piece to what they do, but the way they're rolling, you don't want to mess up the chemistry. Duncan Robinson he's getting going again. He kind of went down a little bit. Now he's back. So there's some interesting dynamics as well as you go into the NBA finals with the Miami Heat. But all in all, man, it was a great series just from a dramatics perspective, and for Boston to come back from 0-3 to take it to a game 7, but then fall flat. It was just disappointing. And yeah, it opens there are a number of questions that will need to be answered in the offseason on how they proceed. Brad Stevens and the crew have a lot of work on their hands here because this team, they made it to the conference finals again. So they've been here multiple times, but this year you fall short where you had the path blazed for you. So I look at it like congratulations to Miami, Jimmy Butler and the team for persevering, not falling apart in game 7, keeping it together, and ultimately going to the NBA finals again.
Let me ask you this, Danny, kind of going back to some of the questions here. So what happens now with the Boston Celtics?
They're in a pickle because if you don't sign Jaylen Brown, it's tough, man, because his performance doesn't warrant that contract right now. You know, it's recency bias, right? Jaylen Brown's a great player, all NBA. It's hard to justify. I want him to get paid. He deserves to get paid because he's worked his tail off, but that is key. Or do they sign and trade him? Because there's a team in Houston, I'm sure that would take him because they have the cap space to take him on.
Yeah.
But the problem is, what are they returning back to Boston to make Boston better? If Boston can't improve and it's just a salary dump, then it makes no sense. You might as well ride with them because they're still really young, too. That's the other thing. It's not like they're in their mid-30s, not like Golden State. So they still have a lot of life left in those legs. From a management coaching perspective, that's where I think they may need a change and that's where their current coach, Joe Mazzulla, he was put in a bad spot because he came in with the Ime Udoka saga. So if Udoka was still here, I think it's a different story and they actually play a little more consistent. But I just think so many dynamics are going on behind the scenes that's the way they're playing is how the things are going behind the scenes. And I think they need a coaching change more than letting Jaylen Brown go.
I think Boston has a lot of decisions to make. Do you keep Grant Williams? Is he one to continue forward with? Al Horford, I mean, he's getting up there, man. I don't know how many more seasons he really has, but contractually he is slated actually to only this year he made $26.5 million. Next year it's only $10 million.
Yep.
The year after, $9.5 million. So he's signed up through the 24-25 season, but it seems like he's thinking it's going to be more so of a decreased role Robert Williams, he signed through actually 25-26 season.
Mm-hmm.
And Grant Williams, he has a team option this year. So there's some decisions to be made here, man, by Boston. I think we're going to see a brand new team. Coaching wise, I don't think they're going to go for another coach. I think they're going to keep their money. Quite frankly, I don't know what other coaches are out there besides Doc. So does Doc make a return back to Boston? I mean,
Well, that's like you said, that's the only person that would possibly be the replacement.
yeah, yeah.
So they
So
missed the Nick Nurse hiring.
yeah,
hiring.
so a lot of questions left, but let me ask you this, Danny: is Jimmy Butler a Hall of Famer? I know there's been some reports and some opinions out there on whether or not Jimmy is a Hall of Famer. He is an Olympian, gold medal, won the gold medal in Rio with the USA basketball team. He's had some great playoff runs this season, being no exception.
Mm-hmm.
But is he a Hall of Famer? I mean, my opinion on that, Danny.
Yeah, go ahead.
See, this is what makes the NBA, excuse me, the Basketball Hall of Fame different. And this is why there needs to be an NBA Hall of Fame. So there needs to be an NBA Hall of Fame and a Basketball Hall of Fame. Because the Basketball Hall of Fame, you could put Olympiads and everything in the Basketball Hall of Fame. In the NBA Hall of Fame, that's only for the very great. If they don't have a championship, they have to have some other accolades, not necessarily a gold medal. Dream Team being probably the exception to that, quite frankly. If you put Jimmy Butler in the Hall of Fame, it could be the Hall of Good, but I can't put him in the NBA Hall of Fame. He's had some great moments in the playoffs, but I mean, he's bounced around from team to team, found a team, obviously down in Miami, found a culture. He has fit into their culture very well, and in some instances, been a great leader in that culture. Don't know if I can put him in the Hall of Fame, though. What say you, Danny?
If he gets a championship, that'll solidify him to making the Hall of Fame, especially with this Miami Heat team, because I think they're undermanned due to injury and everything else. I think he's just not there yet. He definitely has his flashes and everything, but I think he needs a bigger body of work to solidify that. And I think too, he does this in the playoffs, but his regular season, if you look at the regular season for Jimmy Butler, that's not, he doesn't care.
He don't care about the regular season.
So,
man.
But that's a part of being in the Hall of Fame.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's the whole body of work. And like I said, though, if he gets a championship, especially if they beat Denver, that strengthens his resume big time. Because getting there is one thing, but actually winning it and leading a team and winning it like he's doing right now, at least he could be part of the conversation. But right now, I still think he needs to build that resume to get him up to that status.
So, Danny, what's your prediction in the NBA Finals?
Denver will take this series. And why I say that is, like, I'm looking at Boston and Milwaukee, the teams Miami has beaten, New York. Denver's a different beast where they have a lot of height, athletic height that Miami doesn't have. And if they take advantage of that, I know Jokic will. See, this is back when Milwaukee with Brook Lopez, they have everyone's out there shooting threes. Jokic is going to go down low.
Yep.
And he can facilitate or orchestrate from the post. I think it's their height. And they have people they can throw at Jimmy Butler. Like multiple guys like KCP. Not to say they can necessarily stop him, but they can get in his way. KCP, Bruce Brown. And they have Jamal Murray. So it depends, too, who Jimmy Butler's actually guarding on the other side. Because that could wear him down. I'm assuming it's Jamal Murray. So if Jamal Murray is the one they're focusing on, then Bam's on Jokic, but then you have Michael Porter Jr. Aaron Gordon. If they got to play, if they play like they should, I think Denver gets the series because they just have so much depth as far as just talent wise, like 1 through 7 versus Miami. The only thing is Miami has that heart where if they get Denver on their heels, they can actually take Denver. Just from the standpoint of their mentality. But I look at Mike, the coach from Denver, Mike Malone, and he's a good coach. So that's another key factor of this where he can coach with Spo. And it's not a mismatch, so to speak, where they can make adjustments. But I think Jokic is the wild card here, man. And if he's playing well and one other guy gets off outside of Jamal Murray, they should be able to take the series.
Danny, I'm going Denver. And before Game 7 between Miami and Boston, I actually said if Miami advances, it would be Denver in 5 games.
Mm-hmm.
I might elevate this to maybe 6 games, just on account that I think Miami will win Game 1, just on account that Denver has been sitting around waiting, if you will. So their rhythm may be off here. And then after that, I think Miami can maybe squeak another game out. I'm not totally for certain there, but I would say Denver in 5, maybe 6. But I'm leaning towards Denver in 5. I just think Denver has too much hype. They have coaching that is comparable to that of Miami, even though I believe Coach Spo is still a better coach than Mike Malone. I think he's going to run out of pieces that he can actually utilize against Denver. Tyler Hero may come back. I think there's reported that he may be back Game 3. You better hope that's not 2-0 at that point in time, quite frankly, because I think if Tyler Hero comes back in Game 3, that's going to, it'll be in Miami. But I think that could reshuffle things here, if you will. So it's going to be interesting. I really want to see how Caleb Martin does against now a defense, a team that can really focus in on him. And they have had time to focus in on him. So that part is going to be really interesting. So we'll see. But I'm saying Denver in 5, maybe 6.
And Jason, one other thing to add to that may be an advantage for Miami is they've actually played in the championship in the finals. So they know what that feels like. This team was just there a couple years ago, pretty much the same team. So the moment will not be too big for Miami. And if it gets too big for Denver, that's where Miami could take advantage of them, since this is their first time ever in franchise history getting here. So just one other thing to keep an eye on.
And Danny, now on to some coaching news. Our Milwaukee Bucks has selected their coach, Adrian Griffin, who is a top assistant with the Toronto Raptors. He actually beats out Nick Nurse and Kenny Atkinson. Seems like, or there are reports that Nick Nurse decided against going with the Bucks, basically probably offering, ensuring that his assistant has his first coaching opportunity. There are also reports that Giannis and Chris Middleton had dinner with the candidates remaining, and apparently there was a rapport between Giannis and Adrian Griffin. There's a little something here about Adrian Griffin, and it seems like he has paid his dues, but he was an assistant for the Raptors for about 5 years. He also served as an assistant for our Milwaukee Bucks, Chicago Bulls, Orlando Magic, and Oklahoma City Thunder during the early stages of his career. And he's also played 9 seasons in the league, so he knows the league. Interesting hire. I was thinking it would be Kenny Atkinson, because I know Giannis has indicated before how he would have loved to maybe play with the Warriors, and I thought maybe to get some kind of Warriors assistant that would help solidify Giannis staying. But we have our coach, Danny. What say you?
Jason, this one surprised me when I saw it come through on the feed. I look at it like this: Milwaukee now can just go. So if stuff goes wrong, either chemistry, they start off slow, whatever the case may be, this is all Giannis. So the Bucks have a golden ticket here, so to speak, where it's like, all right, we're giving in to Giannis, and hey, don't blame us for this if it goes wrong. I look at it as I'm curious to see what kind of offense he's going to run.
Yep, exactly.
Because that's been obviously something that we've talked about multiple times with this team and how he uses Giannis and what the plan is there. The other thing is, I'm assuming Chris Middleton and Brooke Lopez are coming back, based because if Chris Middleton was in at the dinner, whining and dining, that must mean there's some guarantees that he's coming back.
Yep.
So that's interesting. And I look at it as it's a fresh start. He gets his first opportunity, so I hope all goes well, obviously. But the Bucks are playing, they played this the way I think they should have. And if things go wrong, Giannis has to be accountable for this because this is his guy. And there are no more excuses as far as if execution is not right or whatever the case may be. They got to work it out. So that's where when the players get involved, like when LeBron does this, and the Bucks, did right by Giannis, say, "Hey, man, we want you part of this, and this is your guy. So we're going with who you thought was the best fit." So I wish them all the best, and like I said, I just want to see their offensive scheme and what they do now, and then making sure, see what they do with Middleton, what kind of deal they give him, and what they do with Brooke Lopez. Because they didn't say anything about Brooke, but I'm assuming he's a part of this.
Yeah, I agree there. This invite by John Horst, the GM of Giannis and Chris, to me is an indication that Chris is coming back. They worked out some agreements behind the scenes here. I'll be curious to know about the offense. Will the ball be in Giannis' hands as much? Hoping not. I'm hoping that he finishes off the plays as opposed to starting off the plays. Does that take away from an advantage here? I don't think so. Not unless you put Giannis in the right spots. And then you're going to have to coach Giannis hard to be more dependent upon maybe a mid-range jumper comes into play here more often in Dawes. So we'll see how this goes. But I'm also interested in the defense. One of the downfalls that we've had against Boston, against Miami, was our three-point defense. Now, granted, our three-point defense did improve this year, but it's proved to be our downfall, not only in this playoffs, but just against the high teams, that being the Sixers, that being Boston Celtics, et cetera. This goes on. And so I'm curious about the three-point defense that we'll have here. So we'll see how this turns out. I'm glad that he's getting an opportunity because he did pay his dues. And Dawes to become a head coach. And so I'm excited to see what comes up here. The other thing that I'm excited to see is how is he going to develop young players? We don't have that many young players on a team. So is it going to be something that we really go after more? Beauchamp has to be developed. We have a wide range of, I think, 2 or 3 more players who are on the bench going back and forth with the G League and all. And so are they going to be developed so that way they can be utilized? do we have a Caleb Martin on a team that can be developed? I think that's what's missing. If we had Caleb Martin, I mean, don't get me wrong, Middleton is great. He was hurt this year. He has some great footwork, that being Chris Middleton. But we need someone who can just go get it and be aggressive and slash to the basket. And so this is going to be really interesting to see how they develop. The other coaching news is Nick Nurse going over to the Philadelphia 76ers. I don't know how that's going to bode well with James Harden. Did James Harden approve? Did Joel Embiid approve that? But I'll be interested to see how Philadelphia and also the Bucks go at each other when they play. You have coach, assistant coach, now head coach. So, yeah, that's going to be really interesting to see how that really shapes up, whether it's in the regular season or the playoffs. So, congratulations, Adrian Griffin. We're glad that you're the coach. I'm interested to hear what you have to say in the first press conference here. We need to see some things here in the regular season and ultimately the playoffs.
Thank you for joining us at Back Porch Talk Podcast. You can also join us on Twitter by tweeting us at @back_podcast. For more information, you can go to our website, which is backporchtalkpodcast.com. You can also email us at backporchtalkpodcast@gmail.com. Again, thank you for joining us, and remember that there's enough hate in the world, so go ahead and spread a little love.